So,
Right.
of course, it'll pick this up, so we can just say hello, everybody. And then once we hit our 30-second mark, we'll get going because that's when people usually join us. So I appreciate you coming on. And I
Yeah.
know that late afternoon, you're probably tired, ready to just go eat supper.
I am. I'm going out to dinner with Leanne.
Oh yeah, tell her hey. I
I
love I
will.
love Leanne. She's an awesome woman.
She is. Yes.
Yeah. All right. So we're 30 seconds out and we've got a few people on. And hi everybody. I know we're here tonight with a very familiar face. Hello, Leslie. Welcome. Um,
Hello.
yeah, we just wanted to get on here. We're winding down our Domestic Violence Awareness Month campaign. And we wanted to get on and just talk about this week. We've particularly been talking about the spiritual impacts of domestic abuse and ways to overcome it. And I always think of you when I think about moving forward after domestic abuse. So I don't think I need to introduce you, but you can go ahead and introduce yourself again, just in case there might be somebody out there who doesn't know who you are.
Well, I am probably one of the first women who, or first person, maybe one of the first people who began with a few others speaking out against this over 20 years ago. Domestic abuse in relationships, domestic abuse in families, in marriages. I was writing my book actually on depression when I began to notice as a counselor all the women in my practice that were coming for clinical depression, and then the research I was doing as I was speaking on it, and 90% of them were in destructive marriages. And I was thinking to myself, is the best answer we have to offer these women just take antidepressants and have a swig of vodka before you have to have sex with somebody you hate and somebody who's hated you in every way and yet wants your body to perform for him. And it's such a degrading, demoralizing, objectifying thing that women are told that somehow they have to do that and be intimate with someone they don't feel safe with, they don't trust, who's broken their trust, who's broken their heart. And so I just thought, oh my gosh, we've got to have better answers for them. And so a long, long time ago, I wrote a brochure on, what's a biblical response to domestic abuse. And I've been, probably one of the first ones who wrote, it's okay to get divorced. And I thought I would lose my career when I wrote that in my book, The Emotionally Destructive Marriage, but
Yes.
I didn't, but I thought I would. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to say it anyway.
Yeah. Well, and I'm so grateful for your work. I think I told you the first time I met you that I have probably told about 500 women to buy your book. So at that point, and that was I don't know, several years back. You have done some. You're a pioneer in my mind, and so we really appreciate the work you've done. And I think that the genius of what you've done. I have been a domestic violence advocate since about 1999. Oh, I did it informally, and then got trained around the year 2000. But I think the genius in what you did is call it the emotionally destructive relationship instead of calling it abuse, because nobody wants to call it abuse. They don't want to admit that's what's going on. And so it's beautiful because I can say, check out this book, and they will go, okay, well, if I said go read this book on abuse, they would go, I'm not in an abusive relationship. But when you say destructive, it's just a wonderful way to describe it. And
Yeah,
so,
I was very conscious about that because I knew that the abuse word is still, when you say to your husband, you're being abusive to me, then the argument becomes, no, I'm not, instead of, I don't like the way you treat me. And that's a very different thing. I don't like the way you treat me. I don't like the way you talk to me. I don't like the way you are controlling me, or I don't want to, I want to be my own person, and being able to stick up for that and say that this is destructive, that I'm not allowed to be me in this relationship.
yeah,
Without saying it's abusive, because I think that makes someone immediately defensive. Even when you say it's destructive to me. What you're
yeah,
doing is destructive to me.
yeah, yeah. And it has helped so many people. I think one thing that I appreciate is that you have quizzes in there, and so it's a great tool to use for somebody who's just questioning what's going on in my marriage, my relationship. And so thank you. We do appreciate your work. And then what I also love about your book, you have two books that are on emotionally destructive. One is the emotionally destructive relationship, and one is the emotionally destructive marriage. But you have something called core. And let's just talk a little bit about your core strength. I appreciate that as well when we're moving forward.
Yeah, well, you know, I think that everyone who's been in a destructive relationship, whether it's been from a childhood of, you know, family of origin issue like mine was with my mom, or usually when you're in a childhood issue, you know, end up repeating the same mistake if you haven't learned. And so one of the things that I think is so important for the ladies who are listening, or anybody who's been in a destructive relationship, is that what happened to you, especially when it happened as a child, was not your responsibility at all. But it is your responsibility to get healed. It's your responsibility to get well. And I think when when these books came out, when I talked about that, I think some people read it as, oh, well, that means it's your fault. And I think one of the things that happens with victims, whether you've been a victim of a rape or you've been a victim of a hit and run car accident, or you've been a victim of a destructive person, you're a victim. And there's a place for you to say, you know, wow, I need some empathy and some sympathy, and I need you to validate that I truly am a victim.
Right.
But even when you are truly a victim, you've been in a hit and run accident and the person was indifferent and they drove off and left you by the side of the road. The person who's 100% responsible for your healing is you.
Yeah.
And we don't like that because it's not fair. It's not fair that they can sin against me in such grievous ways. And I've got to pick up the pieces of that to rebuild my life. But if you don't take that mantle, if you don't pick up those pieces, if you don't steward your one precious life, your story is going to turn out very differently than if you do. And so often victim becomes our identity and not just what happened to us. It becomes who we are. We are the victim of this, and therefore we're perpetually damaged goods. And that is not true. That's not God's story for you. And I just would love for women and anybody who's been in an abusive relationship to recognize that there is healing and that God doesn't waste our suffering, even when we've been a victim, like Joseph was a victim or Esther was a victim of sex slavery. She was captured and put in the king's harem to be a sex slave. And I just was at a retreat this weekend, Joy, where I was speaking, and one of the ladies who worked with me to book me and bring me in was working with sex slaves, people who were trafficked in sex slavery. And she had this beautiful book of women who had come out of sex slavery and got married. And she had this beautiful picture book of their weddings. And it was just so beautiful to see the redemption of something that Satan meant to ruin their lives. And yet they took responsibility with help, obviously, to get out of that and build their life. And you can too. And so we don't want anyone who's in this situation of being controlled and demeaned and disrespected and objectified, whether it's through the scriptures, spiritual abuse, or through its fists and, you know, physical harm, or whether it's financially or mentally, emotionally, all of the above, sexually. God sees you as precious. He wants you to be whole and healthy, and you have to cooperate with him in what you need to do to get there.
Yeah. And it's so true that if we don't take responsibility, and some people go, what does that even look like? And so we will talk about that a little bit. What is the first step? For me, it was Jesus's words, or you will know the truth and the truth will set you free. And I always tell people, you have to embrace some of the ugly truth first. The ugly truth is that it was abusive, that it was destructive, that somebody chose not to love you, that they betrayed you. And yet the beautiful truth is that God can and will redeem it if we're willing to face that ugly truth with him and start moving through that process. So what would you consider the some of maybe
Well, that's
one?
exactly right. So you asked about CORE, which is my signature program and my work online with women. And so C stands for I am courageously, because it takes courage. I am courageously committed to facing the truth. I'm courageously committed to facing the truth. This relationship is unhealthy. This relationship is destroying me. This relationship is harmful to me and my children. That's scary for women to face, because once you face the truth, like, oh my gosh, I have a lump in my breast and I have to face that truth. Now, what's my next step? I've got to take some responsibility to deal with that or not. But if I don't and I face the truth, things aren't going to get better. And so it's so important. We might not always be able to tell the truth to everybody because it may not be safe. But we do have to face the truth and at least tell ourselves the truth. And we've been in a relationship where we've been a perpetual victim of someone else's cruelty, indifference, abuse, and all of that. We have to begin to recognize there's some lies that we believe. It's not just the lies that we've been told. It's the beliefs that we have, like I'm not worth it. I can't make it alone. God hates all divorce. I just need to suffer in silence for Jesus. All these beliefs that we have, I need to die to myself. And those beliefs need to be transformed by the word of God. It says in Psalm 107:20, he sent forth his word and healed them, and the truth will set you free. And so God, sometimes spiritual churches are oppressive and abusive themselves, and they teach wrong things using the Bible to oppress you and to convince you that your life is worth less than your husband's life. Your well-being is worth less than his well-being.
Yeah, I think that one of the best lines in your books has something that says something like the most dangerous or the most destructive lies are the ones we tell ourselves.
Yeah,
And that
because
is so
because we
true.
don't even recognize their lies. I mean, we don't call them lies. We call them beliefs.
Yes.
I believe I can't. How many of you have ever said, I can't do it, I can't take it? And you did take it and you did do it. But when we tell ourselves we can't, we don't access the power of God and the power that we have within ourselves to figure it out and do it.
Yeah, that is so true. So, step one is being courageous and looking at the truth. And then we move forward from there. If there was really one huge step that you could take, a practical step to take to move forward when you're looking at relationship, because we do get stuck in that. Yes, we minimize it. It's so easy just to get stuck in anger. It's so easy to I was talking, well, we interviewed Patrick Weaver today, and he was talking about, he says, it's like everybody, they will navigate, they will, they'll be, it's like they're attracted to messages of what happened to them. And they want to hear that over and over again because it's validating, because we might have gone to the church and the church didn't recognize what happened. So we are sitting there looking at these dynamics and we're just clinging to that information because it's the truth about what happened to us, but we can't stay there. And so
Well,
moving
there's some
forward.
other beliefs that we have that are going to ruin our life. And here are three of them. There's a number of them that I write about, but life should be easy and fair. and hard is bad. Those are three beliefs that typically our culture has. Comfortable is better than uncomfortable. Life is hard. I don't like hard. Hard is bad. I can't do hard. Those are beliefs that we tell ourselves, and that makes it hard to face the truth because we're angry that life should be easy. That I didn't sign up for this kind of marriage. I signed up for the fairy tale marriage. I didn't sign up for a destructive marriage. I didn't ask for divorce. I didn't ask for a husband to cheat on me. And so we get caught in this life should be one way. Life should be easy. Life should be fair. This shouldn't have happened to me. Hard is bad. And those are beliefs that we have that keep us stuck in victim mindset and immaturity and unhealthiness. Life isn't easy and fair. I mean, thank God we live in America, but we could have grown up somewhere where it was a whole lot worse, in Iran or someplace else where there isn't even legal protection for women.
Yeah.
Life isn't easy. Life isn't fair for so many people, including here in America. Life is hard. Jesus tells us it will be hard. And hard isn't bad. Hard builds muscles. Who works out at the gym with styrofoam cups? I mean, you can't grow muscles without doing hard. And so God puts us sometimes in hard situations so that we can grow. My little granddaughters are learning multiplication and fractions and all that. And it's hard. And, they don't like it. And I'm saying, you can't learn higher math if you don't learn this stuff. Every step is the next step toward your growth. And so once we accept that life is hard and it's not fair and it's not easy, and we're not angry about that, that helps us then to be open to what God is trying to teach us. When we're just mad that life is hard and it's not fair and I don't want to do this, we just get stuck in our own circle.
Yeah. Well, and what I love as a survivor is that Jesus came down and it wasn't fair to him either. And he knows what it's like to be victimized and to suffer unfair, to suffer injustice.
Yeah.
And yet he used it. He redeemed it in the most beautiful way, and he will redeem our suffering too. We're not saying that you should stay and just put yourself in the hard's way, but what we're saying is that God will use it. My mom used to say, let's see, adventure is hardship rightly seen. So
Yeah.
she would say that often, and I thought, what do you mean by that? But my mother was one that was always looking for lessons. No matter what happened in her life, she was looking for the lesson in it, and so that's something that I've been teaching the women that I work with for years, rather than asking why is this happening to me? What do you want
What's
to work? Yeah,
Mhm.
what are you going to do in my life as a result of this hardship that I've experienced, Lord? What do you want to do with it? And the more that I look to him and I ask him that, then the more he actually meets me in it. And
When you
so
think, when you think of the story of Joseph, I mean, Joseph was victimized by his brothers, then he was lied about by Potiphar's wife. He ended up in slavery, he ended up in jail. And if anyone had a right to be bitter and angry, Joseph did. So
mhm,
let's think about Joseph's life story. So you can't control the external circumstances always of the story. So you married, a narcissist, or you married an adulterer, you married a liar. Joseph had brothers who were treacherous at the time, and they sold him into slavery because of their own envy of him. And then Potiphar's wife had her own issues, and she lied about him. And he goes to jail. And these things were very unfair, very unjust. And Joseph could have become so angry in jail and so discouraged and so against God and so beaten down that his story would have ended in jail. But that's not what he chose to do. He couldn't control the outside of the circumstances totally, but he could control the lesson he was going to learn from it. How is he going to be better from it? How is he going to not be like that? How is he going to grow through it? And just like your mother said, every hardship has its teacher. And sometimes we don't like our teacher because it's not a nice teacher, but it will teach us a lesson if we're open. And that's the second step of core. I'm open to the Holy Spirit and wise others who want to help me learn what I have to learn. This is a true story. I wrote about it in my blog today, but I was speaking at a conference, and it was a secular conference, and the lady asked me what I did, and I told her, and she says, oh, she goes, I married a narcissist. She goes, it was the best marriage I could have picked, the best man I could have picked for me. And I'm like, what? Tell me more. And she said, I was such a passive, accommodating, people-pleasing woman that if I had not married a mean narcissist, there is no way I would have developed a backbone. But I had to develop a backbone really fast. I had to learn how to say no. I had to learn how to take care of myself, and I had to learn how to get out of there. And I would have never learned that had I not picked that man. That's a
yes,
whole different story than poor me. I had a failed marriage and it's not fair,
yes,
right?
yeah. I tell people, I mean, it took me a while to get to this, but I tell people that I am so grateful for what I went through, because I look back and I think about who I was before and who I am now,
Mhm.
and I wouldn't want to go back to where I was before. I lived in constant fear, and even through this, the Lord has delivered me from so many fears. And I feel like I was very shallow in my faith, and I have a faith that is unshakable now. Somebody said, "What if I could prove to you God doesn't exist?" And I'm like, "That's not possible." I mean, it's just been so real to me.
Yeah.
And a lot of that comes from going through all the suffering that I went
The
through
hard.
coming out
It
of.
goes
Yeah.
through the hard. And as you go through the hard, you build those muscles that James talks about, that you build perseverance, that you build faith, that you build steadiness. And nobody wants hard. Nobody volunteers like, I'll do hard, unless you're a Navy SEAL maybe. But you learn through hard. And I think if our ladies are listening to this and they want to get healed, what they really are getting confused about is, I want my husband to get healed so our marriage will be better. And that you don't have any control over. So that takes us to our third step of core. So C is I'm courageously committed to the truth. O is I'm going to be open to learn what I need to learn. R, I'm going to take responsibility for myself, because I can't take responsibility even if you wanted to. If your husband was hit by a hit and run driver and he was refusing to go to the hospital, and he was refusing to go to physical therapy, and he was refusing to, practice walking again, you can't make him. You can't do someone else's healing. They have to do that healing work. And so even when you have compassion on their illness or compassion on what's wrong with them, you still can't do their work. Now, all you can do is your work. And so that's why it's so important that you take your eyes off of what's wrong with him. If he's dangerous, put your eyes on you. I need a safety plan. The prudent see danger and take refuge. You're not going to change him. You have to change you so that you're courageous enough to implement your safety plan and take responsibility for yourself. And that's your work to do.
Yeah. Amen. And let's get to E. Core. Your
Yeah.
E.
So the rest of R, let me just finish the rest of R, because it's not just taking responsibility for my welfare, my stewardship, like who's going to take every thought captive to the obedience of Christ if I don't? Who's going to make sure I get 8 hours of sleep if I don't? Who's going to read my Bible for me and fill my mind with the truth if I don't? So it's not just taking responsibility for my sin, it's taking responsibility for my life. And then also learning to be respectful in the way I speak without dishonoring myself. So we don't want to get into this pleading, begging, please don't leave me kind of thing, because that dishonors you. You're a person of value and worth. You don't have to beg someone to love you. And if they don't choose to love you, it's not a statement about you. It's a statement about them and their willingness or ability to give love. And so really getting all that truth clear in your head about how that works in relationships. And then finally, E, one of the things that happens when we've been a victim of abuse is we're angry. And we're rightly so. We should be angry at the injustice of it, the wrongness of it, the sin of it, all of that. But in our anger, the Bible really is clear that we shouldn't fall into bitterness and resentment and sin. And so this E step helps guard our heart against that by saying, I will continue to have empathy and compassion. I don't want myself to lose that, because then I'm going to become just like my abuser. And so I want to have empathy and compassion, yet not enabling someone else to continue to harm me. So with those good boundaries and learning how to have boundaries, and it's okay to have boundaries, and it's okay to say no with empathy and compassion. If you were a nurse in a hospital and you had empathy for a cancer patient that was cursing you out and smacking you because they were in pain, you'd have empathy and compassion for them, but you'd still put them in restraints so they don't harm you, right? You would have boundaries around your ability to care for that person.
Yeah. And I really think that's the most loving thing you can do for them as well. That took me a while to figure out. I really thought I wasn't being loving when I did that, but that was just those were some of the lies that I had come to believe.
Yeah.
So yeah, just
Just
untangling.
like your 2-year-old, if he's throwing a fit and he's hitting you, you might have, compassion, empathy that he's tired, he's hungry, he's, stressed out. And you can be that kind of mom. Yeah, I know you're tired, but you cannot hit mommy. That's not okay. And so you have those boundaries and you can still be compassionate.
Yeah. And that's a wonderful analogy. I always often felt like I was married to a 2-year-old. So yes.
Oftentimes that's the maturity level of some of these destructive people.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So, Leslie, I don't want to keep you too long. I know that you have plans this evening, and I just wanted to get you on here. We are, again, ending up our Domestic Violence Awareness Month campaign. It is also, we're trying to raise awareness, and we're also ending up our largest fundraiser of the year. And we are about $10,000 short of that right now. And what we want to be able to do is we have a pretty high goal this month, but it's because we are growing so fast. We've continued to grow. We provide advocates for people who reach out to us. Maybe you don't even know where to begin your healing process, or where to connect for resources to be able to move forward. That's what we do at Call to Peace Ministries. We provide one-on-one advocacy. We provide support groups and church partnerships. We actually have pastors who will go in and talk to your pastors and help work through domestic abuse situations. So help them educate your pastors or support them as they go through. And it's been really amazing to watch.
That is
So we
amazing.
have very practical resources, and we don't charge people for these services. So if you would see fit, we are actually in the midst of this fundraiser, and I'll put a link there for that. And I know, Leslie, you have been, we just appreciated your support in the past, that you have, I hope you've sent people our way, and we appreciate that.
Yeah. And so how many people do we have online watching right now?
It's not a very high number now. I imagine we're going to get them right now, but just like less than 50. So it's what it's showing.
Okay.
I am also doing it through Restream, so we are missing the YouTube people. It's hard to tell.
Okay, so I'm going to give half of that $10,000, and I want the other 50 people, or whoever else is watching this, to match that, so we can get this done. So we can get this done for Joy and this group, because this group is amazing. I mean, we needed an advocate for somebody in Arizona, and we called them and said, can you give us an advocate out here in Arizona? And so I think it's really important that as women, if you're watching this, if you're in a church, whether you're in a destructive marriage or not, if you've got resources, if you've got $100, this is something that we could, if 50 people gave $100, we would be there. And so I think it's so, so important for us to put our money where our mouth is, where our heart is. And God calls us to care for injustice and the oppressed. God calls us to care for victims. and they have to care for themselves as well. But they are right now like the Good Samaritan. We're going to be the Good Samaritan. They're like on the road, by the side of the road, or they've just been beaten up, and they're needing someone to pick them up and bring them to the hospital. They still have to do their own work. They still have to do their own healing, but they need a bit of a lift, some sort of support. And that is really important, even in core strength. When I'm open to the Holy Spirit and wise others. But where am I going to hear from those wise others? I'm going to hear from them through the advocacy. I'm going to hear from them through Conquer, other places where there are women who have been there and done that, or there's coaches. And this is where we need to put our money into some supporting, helping the organizations that can help these women take that next step, or put them in a shelter, or help them take the first step of developing a safety plan, or getting to a DV shelter. All those kind of things. We can be the hands and feet of Jesus. And we use our money to do that, because not all of us can be out on the front lines, but those who are not on the front lines can be in the back lines, giving them money to be in the front lines. And so I support organizations. I support this one. I support others. And I want you to too, because I think this cause is really, really important. It is near and dear to God's heart. And he wants us to speak up for the oppressed and those who have been unfairly treated. And it's sometimes right in your own church.
Yeah. And thank you so much, Leslie. I didn't plan on that one. So thank you.
You don't know that. That's a surprise.
Yeah, thank you. That's a lovely surprise. Thank you so much. And somebody's asking where we're located. We do have advocates in 40 different states. So we will find somebody as close to you as possible. We really do need to probably bring more advocates on staff, just because we get the sheer number of calls that we're getting. 29 in 20 days. Last week when we were talking about it. So that's a lot of requests, and 65 advocates can't handle that many if we continue at that rate. So we do provide these. It's a different kind of a ministry. I don't know anybody else is doing that, but it was like people kept asking me to teach an advocacy class, and I thought, I don't have time to write a curriculum. And then God just sent Dr. Deborah with 30 courses on advocacy and domestic abuse. So her curriculum is amazing. What we do is we take we use her curriculum, but I add the biblical perspective for those coming from a faith-based perspective. And so I got Portia on here, who's our advocate coordinator. And so she's talking about that. Maybe Portia, you can put in the comments how they can sign up to get an advocate, or how they can become an advocate, because we'd love that. Just partner with us. Leslie, thank you so much. I can't thank you enough, and as always. And we're gonna end the live stream, just because I want to let you get to dinner with our friend Leanne. And anything else you want to say before we sign off?
If you are interested in being an advocate, type it in the chat and they'll contact you. If you're interested in someone helping you, we want to help you as we're able, but it does require some funding. And so if you have extra, you don't maybe have $100 extra, but you have $5 extra, you can give up your Starbucks for a month and have $20 extra. I think every little bit matters. And I think sometimes when we're here, we know this is near and dear to our heart, and it's near and dear to God's heart. And when we have some skin in the game and we're involved in helping, whether we're helping on the front lines or in the back lines, it's just as important. Either way is extremely important, because you can't do, even just coming online and paying for all the tech. And Joy and I were saying, both of us are so tech challenged. We were like, oh my gosh, we need to hire somebody before we get on, because we had a camera that was coming down from the ceiling and we didn't know how to fix that, and all those kind of things. And so I just want to let you know how much I appreciate this organization. They do a great job. I'm so happy to partner with them in any way I can, and love to encourage you to partner with them as well and learn all you can about Call to Peace and the advocacy program that they have, because it's amazing. It's a blessing.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. And there's a couple of people asking how to become an advocate. We have an advocacy curriculum. Go to calledtopeace.org, and Portia's put the link. And there's a link there that will just take you over. It's a 12-month, I guess it's 12 classes over 12 months. And so you can become affiliated with us as a volunteer advocate. You might even get a job with us one day. And if you can also go to our website and just click request an advocate. So we will try to get to you as soon as we possibly can. All right, Leslie, I appreciate you so much. And thank you for taking the time to come on. And I hope to talk to you again soon.
We will. Take care. Thanks. Bye bye.
I thank you, everybody.